Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So today we're going to do something completely different. We've never done this before. Very excited to have Sarah Audsley on the show. She's an adoptee and she's also a poet. So I've done like 3 poems in my life. So this is completely new to me, but I kind of quite like them. You know, I quite like this. So welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to learning from somebody who's done a whole more than 3 poems, right?
Yes. Hi, Simon. Thanks so much for having me and connecting me to your Thriving Adoptees community. It's a real pleasure to be chatting with you about my adoptee experience and my process of understanding that through poetry and the publication of my debut poetry collection called Landlock X from Texas Review Press, which came out in February 2023. And yeah, I'm happy to just dive in wherever you'd like to start.
Yeah. So everybody, as just in case people are new to the show, haven't heard it before, I always create some what's called show notes, right? With links to what the guest is up to, links to their socials, links to their website if they've got it, links to their Amazon book, because I want to elevate adoptive voices, right? So I will create some links there, so you'll get links to all what Sarah's up to, and perhaps a little bit of just two sentences of background. What got me going on this, right? Other than having a go at writing my own poetry, is I heard somebody who I name check on the show all the time. I make no excuses for doing that because he's a brilliant guy. He's a guy called Rupert Spira. He isn't in the adoptee, he isn't in the adoption community. He's in the consciousness community, I would say. He's he doesn't like being called a teacher, but he's an author, writer, teacher, speaker. And he said to me something very intriguing a couple of months back. He says that people will argue with philosophers, but won't argue with poets, right? So poets are trying to create, often are trying to evoke something, evoke an emotional experience from their listeners. And because it's not it's not a straightforward text and description and factual, it's more of an evocation, and it creates a different sensation, feeling, response from different people, right? So what do you make of all that, Sarah, as a poet with far more knowledge of this stuff, right, than me?
Yeah, I love that opening question. I think that everyone is afraid of poetry. And I think that because we don't necessarily because it exists in this imaginative space, as you're saying, where you have both, fact and truth, and also metaphor and figurative language, and also the ability to have ambiguous endings, or to evoke feeling through image or sound, or yeah. So I think that I gravitated towards writing poetry when I was very young, in elementary school and then also in high school. And then I didn't really understand that it was something that one could do later on, in like as a vocation and an avocation. And so I definitely think that it allowed me to process feelings and emotion, and also what was going on in my life. And I still really do feel like the first person speaker is a persona, even though the first person speaker and the autobiographical elements of my work are very close to being part of a truth. But poetry really allows this flexibility with conveying feeling and emotion and combining fact, and making it you're able to really create feeling and emotion in the reader, in someone who's receiving the work or the poem.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. So let's dive in, shall we? Would you like to read one of your poems to us?
Sure. I'll read the poem that closes the collection. It's called When My Mother Returns as X, and the poetry collection is called Landlock X, and X is a variable that recurs throughout the book. It brings back it's the return of the mother. And I grew up knowing that my biological mother died from complications of my birth. So this imagines her coming back in various forms. And this poem has circulated on Poetry Daily, and was originally published in an online journal called Potluck Mag, which I think is a little defunct now, but it had an earlier life in an online journal, and then is now printed in the book. And it's the last poem in the collection. When my mother returns as X. When my mother returns as X, she multiplies herself to be every single living thing, a cloud of butterflies, 6 calves grazing in the field beyond the pines, grass bending to the wind's steady pressure. She's a swarm of bees seeking the dust of golden pollen hidden in the cups of poppies. She's an X, marks the spot where she made me, the hand that never fed me, imprinting my DNA a second time. She's a white moon tipped over, brimming with milk for a body that's not there. She multiplies herself to be every form, the breeze lifting the white curtain, a pink silver-edged cloud expanding, the night coming on. When my mother returns, she is the bitter in my mouth I can't dilute. She swells inside. She's the branch from which birds will never fly.
Wow. There's so much there. There's so much loss, complexity, wholeness. There's so much contradiction. It would strike me that.
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
Have you heard that phrase? We're not human beings having a spiritual beings. Sorry, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yeah.
Yes, I love that phrase. I love how that changes the hierarchy of the bodily experience and the spiritual experience of being walking around on our planet.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is one cannot have one without the other. So but I like how that phrase flips, and thinks about the spiritual experience that one has inside a body.
And where that goes is it's one spiritual beings. So the world looks like 7 billion or whatever it is now, 7.6 billion humans, but it's one being. And and it's one being. It's the consciousness that underpins everything, every human being, but everything else as well. So it's the universe, you know, the one song, and that's what I got from the start of the poem, is that your mother is everything. She is the universe.
Yeah, so I think that poem allows me to list. Essentially it's a list poem, a listing imagistic details of what she could return as. And the X variable allows me to put anything in that variable. But I grew up in a rural area in central Vermont in the United States. And that I gravitate towards the natural landscape, and place is really important to me. So the spirit becomes embodied in all of these various natural world reincarnations, like mini reincarnations. So if I was just taking a walk in the woods or in the fields, you could look everywhere and you could see the return of the mother or an ancestor in any physical embodiment. So the poem invites the different ways that the mother, my biological mother, could come back.
Yeah. So
or could coexist, yeah.
So my wife's died. Sorry, my mother-in-law, my wife's mother died coming up 11 years ago, and she sees her in a robin in our garden.
That's so lovely.
And she's pretty straightforward, factual, kind of she's a non-woo-woo person. Like if I said to her, spiritual being having a human experience, she would think I was being a bit nuts. We wouldn't discuss that sort of stuff here. So she's deeply rational, and yeah, she sees that. She sees her mother's return, like you see your mother's return. And what's playing for me is, I saw some of the your poetry readings on YouTube. I was looking at those last week, and what struck me was it's the tranquility of nature, isn't it? So if we're thinking about trauma, we're thinking about loud feelings, big explosive feelings, and loud thoughts, and a lot of volume, a lot of destruction.
Sure, yeah.
And when we're connecting, like when I'm walking the dog every morning, I'm usually listening to something, but I'm in the peace and tranquility of nature. I'm communing with nature, and it's an escape, isn't it?
It's not necessarily an escape for me. I am a person that's committed to place and belonging to a place. And that landscape is northern New England in the United States. It's a rural landscape. It's a landscape where I have access to hiking and getting up to the summit of a mountain, however high or short it is. And I really enjoy visiting and being a part of landscape in all different seasons. So spring, summer, fall, winter, knowing a place in all of those different seasons really grounds me and offers me a place of belonging in many ways in which the world, our structural systems of oppression and racism and all the isms does not. And I feel like nature is often categorized as a very tranquil, healing space, but it's very dynamic. There's constant change happening. Even looking out my window, right now the apple trees are blossoming. They're beautiful. But then I realized on my walk with my dog this morning that the petals are going to fall off and they're going to turn brown. And then later in the season, we'll have, little crab apples or larger apples will form. and then they'll fall off and they'll rot. So you have all of that change happening within nature, and it's comforting to watch those processes happen, and also connects me to the place where I live.
Yeah. So I think the key thing for me there was the sense of belonging. You said that the sense of belonging was missing in other parts, and exists in nature. That's where you find it, which is why I said escape, and that escape means getting is kind of being away, moving away from something, whereas yours is more towards the belonging.
Yeah. I guess the whatever word we'd like to use, there's just a sense of feeling like I belong in my relationship with land and place, whether or not the human beings around feel like that I belong. And I mean, maybe it's escapism. Like maybe going for a hike on a weekend is escapism, but I don't see it that way. Yeah, thanks for thinking about that with me.
Yeah. I was actually thinking that I'm normally listening to something when I'm walking the dog. Are you normally listening to something? Like I'm normally listening, as I say, to a podcast or an audiobook. Do you normally listen to something, or do you just listen to the sounds of nature?
Yeah, I walk my dog 2.5 hours a day. So I walk him an hour before I go to work, and then I walk him around lunchtime for like a little 20-30 minute. I run home from work and let him out, because my place is nearby my work. And then I walk him minimum an hour, sometimes an hour and a half after work. And during that time, I'm not listening to music or a podcast. I'm just letting my mind wander. And then I'm also paying attention to what's happening in nature and in the environment. One, for protecting my dog, so he doesn't, he's on a really long leash, but just making sure that, listening for sounds of oncoming cars or other pedestrians. And then two, I am paying attention to what's happening in the environment that I'm walking in. So sometimes you hear geese, and at night, right now, this time of year in the early spring, there are peepers, which are frogs that are singing, and it's like this huge, massive chorus. And they come out in the evening for mating. So yeah, I'm paying attention auditorily, and I guess that's more of like a whole body experience. When I'm driving long distance, I enjoy listening to podcasts and audiobooks, but not when I'm walking.
This guy that I mentioned earlier on, Rupert Spira, he says that meditation is what we are, not what we do, and that strikes me as an interesting, it's a reframe, isn't it? Most people think meditation is an action, it's a verb, isn't it? Rather than the kind of like the peace and quiet. What struck me is the amount of time that you're giving yourself there for 2.5 hours just to be, right? Which is good for you.
It's it seems like a lot of time.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. I think one, I think my dog needs to walk that much, and two, allows me to just have clear my headspace from the work day. Oftentimes I'm thinking about what I'm drafting and writing, or I'm mentally drafting correspondence, emails, thinking about my to-do list. And sometimes it just is a moving meditation of being outside, and moving in continuous fashion. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it's just part of my daily habit.
Yeah.
So I forget that might not be normal to other people. But yeah, it's like, I mean, on the weekend, I am taking like 3 or 4 walks with my dog, depending on, if we do a larger, longer, bigger hike, or if it's like, put the laundry on, wait for the laundry, go for a walk, come back, put the laundry in the dryer, go for another walk, or, um, so it's just, yeah, it's just a habit.
Yeah.
And I forget how important it is to me until I don't get in a longer walk. And then I'm like, oh, I really, really
Yeah.
need that walk, or make up for it on the other end.
I mentioned something about the tranquility of nature, and the immediate thing that popped into my head on when you said something about that was that when we go, I remember being skiing for about 6 years, but one of the metaphors that I was playing with for a poem was an avalanche, right? And obviously avalanches are mainly natural, but actually in the ski resorts, they'll often put dynamite in to cause the avalanche to clear all the snow. And when those booms go off, they're pretty scary, So I thought an avalanche was a great metaphor for. So if you think an avalanche, it starts off as snow, but then it sort of gathers up rocks and twigs and trees, and how trauma is essentially a mixture of explosive feelings and thoughts, in the same way like an avalanche is a mixture of snow and rocks and twigs. Have you got anything that's more violent in your poetry in the book? Have you got anything that's more about that, or are they all more kind of restorative, meditative pieces?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think trauma and healing is on a continuum, and that it also goes in cycles. So I don't see it as a linear process, or as a pyramid process that you get to the summit, and then there's a resolution, and then like falling resolution action, like Freytag's pyramid, which is a old school way of thinking about narrative plot. So I don't believe that trauma works like that. So one of the themes that recurs in the poetry collection Landlock X is experiencing microaggressions, and the book actually opens with a handwritten letter from the biological father. And then there are 3 erasures. The book is divided into 3 sections. Then there are 3 erasures of the English translation of the handwritten letter. They're handwritten letters written in Korean script. So as far as, experiencing trauma and processing that, one of the themes that exists throughout the collection is processing identity through experiencing moments of microaggression, and where the speaker of the poems, i.e. me, the author, the poet, processes that through like little scenes. So yeah, there's moments of I think that that's how the natural world elements create tension within the work, where you can have a more, as you said, violent, trauma-based experience, and then there's the tension that occurs when you pair it up next to something that is beautiful from nature. So the concepts also, the book is also interested in the practice of beauty next to those cultural tensions. I think, for example, there's a poem about, that's a letter in the epistolary mode, that's a letter to the woman who carried me on the plane, and it's a direct address to her, but the last line ends with, "Why, even now, do I practice this insistence on beauty?" So that's the last line, but the rest of the poem is calling into question the act of transporting babies from one country to another through the adoption industrial complex. So you have those tensions of acknowledging the industry and the trauma that can happen through transracial adoption. And then also you pair that next to what is beautiful in the world. And some of that often for me is natural beauty.
Yeah, I'm just Googling away because I heard something.
And I can read that poem if you want.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this poem is in the first section. It's called Letter to the Woman on the Plane. Letter to the woman on the plane. You who transported X number of small squirming packages from one country to another, of course, only remember me. I was delightful. I did not holler the whole way on that long flight. I let you sleep, although refused the bottle. Maybe you thought your job was holy, newly anointing another white mother, or was it just another job, delivering bundles made from panting and groping around in the dark? Dried up semen, tangled bedsheets. All those mothers waiting in all those terminals, outstretched arms, fingers extended as you handed over baby after baby to home after home, practicing how to recreate family. Why, even now, do I practice this insistence on beauty?
Yeah. So to go ultra simplistic, why do you think you do?
Oh, I think that's how one of the ways how we survive, to make meaning of the world, is to find ways to survive and to move through past our trauma-based responses. And for me, I guess that might be a rhetorical question, that the practice continues for me of trying to find some way of rationalizing or negotiating with the world. And maybe that is through a practice of looking at trying to turn something into something that's beautiful.
Yeah. So many things are popping into my head. From Monty Python, and the life of Brian. Yeah, and when they're all at the end, they're all crucified, and they're all singing "Always look on the bright side of life."
Yeah.
So that was one thought that popped into my head. And another one was, I was just Googling something that, to quote another poet that I've heard mentioned by this Rupert Spira guy, and this is Keats, John Keats, who was, I guess he was was he a British or an American poet? So he says, so this is some text that I found from a guy, a professor at Loughborough University, which is in the UK. Beauty is truth, comma, truth, beauty, is perhaps the most famous statement John Keats ever wrote. But what do these words mean? They form part of the concluding couplet to his poem, Ode on a Grecian Urn. So yeah, 1819, he wrote that. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. So ye means you, doesn't it? Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you know on earth, and all you need to know. Now, to me, that's a bit of a spinner. I'm hoping it means more something. It means something more explicable to a poet like yourself. What do you see there?
Oh, well, I'm not necessarily going to argue with Keats, but I love how you brought that into the conversation. I'm very well aware of those lines in, it's a very famous poem that you quoted. And many other poets and writers have had more well-formed and elegant theories or thoughts around the difference between truth or beauty, or the combination of both of them. And Keats is often quoted in poetics as this champion of both of those abstract concepts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'm committed to trying. And it's interesting to be in conversation with Keats, who's like an old, dead white poet, and me being, a middle-aged Korean American adoptee poet, who's also interested in the natural world and conceptions of beauty. So I think that is also another tension, which is interesting. And I will not be the last person who is going to think about these things. So I'm happy to be in conversation with that, and think about how it provides insight and some types of shifting and thinking, and ways to process experience.
Yeah. So the way as you were talking there, what came to me was another poet, or somebody said this. I'm not a religious guy, but I think it might have been even quoted in the Bible. Was it? Somebody said for ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Is that? I'm sorry, I'm absolutely murdering that. Am I on a quote? Does that, the truth will set you free? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I'm not sure who that quote is attributed to, that the truth shall set you free. I find that a really interesting concept. I think that as far as for my adoptee experience, I found that once one learns more pieces of information about if you are able to get more information, more documents, if you're able to go on a search and meet your biological parents, or if you get more information on, what happened, any types of factual truth that you receive, sometimes ends up creating more questions. So I think it can be freeing to have more information and to have some version of the truth, but also feel like there's no one singular truth, especially within the adoptee experience, and that the personal truth that one might have might differ from the adoption agency or the genetic parents, mother or father, or if you have half siblings, or siblings, full blood siblings, their truths might be different. And that's, I guess, what, how we have different versions of the same story can come through. So I don't believe in any one singular truth. I think that we have to figure out what the truth is for ourselves, within ourselves. And then that can be freeing. So in that way, I do stand by that truth will set you free as if you figure out what that means for yourself. But someone else might have a different version of their truth that might conflict with yours. Which I think is how memory works too, like how we can all grow up in the same nuclear family and have had an experience of growing up in that family, but each individual person in that family remembers something different that happened. Like say if we're on like a camping trip or something, and one person remembers the mosquitoes and the other person remembers the s'mores that they had, and the other person remembers swimming every day, and the other person only remembers like the trash that they had to take out or something. So in that way, the truth is varied. So yeah, I both agree with that statement and also like don't.
Yeah. It depends what level you're talking about truth, doesn't it? Like you can, I think a lot of us, relating it to an adoption experience, a lot of us think that once we get the truth, that will set us free, and we'll stop this circular thought going around in our head, the circles of thought going around in our head. Why was I adopted? Why didn't she keep all those circular things? So if free of those, and yeah, something I was talking about last week to another fellow adoptee. I'm going to change it. I'm going to tweak it to fit this. So what if we could be free? We want to be free from questions, or free from insecurity, or free from not knowing. Yeah. We want the truth, and we want it now. But what if we could be free with not knowing, rather than free from not knowing? Does that make you'd be able to say that it's a bit, I mangled it a bit. Could you put that in more simple?
Sure, yeah. So I think that you're trying to distinguish between wanting to know certain information and feeling like that information will finally give you a sense of resolution and feel like you're then therefore free, versus which is one way to navigate an adoptee experience. And it's definitely not wrong at all, because I think that all of those things are valid. And another way to navigate it is accepting that you don't know things, and being okay with the not knowing is kind of what you're saying.
Yes.
And it's really interesting that you brought in Keats earlier, talking about truth or beauty, because John Keats also has this concept called negative capability. And negative capability is a term that he's often attributed, but it's being able to rest in the unknowing. So the longer that you can rest in the unknowing, the more there is potential for something else to arise or something else to happen. And then I would go further and say that maybe that is freeing. Maybe being able to rest in the unknowing, it allows us some certain amount of freedom. And I guess we could apply that to the adoptee experience of being able to have those questions be unanswered, and be comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I was thinking as you're saying, you said rest in the unknowing, and I was thinking, yeah, rest in the unknowing, rest in the unknown, and use the word resolution. I think is a really good. So be comfortable with not knowing, be comfortable prior to resolution, be comfortable without resolution.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, because I think that as adoptees, we're born into, we're set up for wondering and questioning, and that's built into the adoptee experience. And I think that's totally natural and normal. And that is one of the ways I feel connected to other adoptees. I understand that longing and desire to know more information. And sometimes we will not ever get more information. So that ability to rest in the unknowing, for the unknowing to be a sort of resolution. I guess when I'm saying resolution, the word revolution is on my tongue. That's why I'd hesitated on that word twice. So maybe my brain wants to go towards revolution, in the, subverting these expected tropes or norms or trauma responses. How can we be revolutionary in our own experience? And yeah, so
yeah,
it's complicated to be an adoptee, and I'm not on any fully healed spectrum at all. I'm learning and going and moving forward. And writing Landlock X, the poetry collection, was one step in a lifelong journey, and being part of my own adoptee experience, just one way of moving in the world, and also hopefully connecting to other adoptees and connecting with you. I'm so grateful to be invited to have this conversation. So yeah, my book is an offering, and also for other adoptees.
Yeah. So where the bit that I started the last segment with, that I tweaked, was we're seeking to be, some of us, well, maybe just me, seeking freedom from trauma, right, versus freedom with trauma. So this idea is like we're trying to so freedom from trauma leads to numbing, suppression, alcoholism, drugs, scrolling inanely through Facebook. In my case, I've got an obsession with Rupert Spira and Edwin jeans. I am in love with the beauty of the indigo of Edwin jeans, made in Japan. They were the original. They were original stonewashing. They invented stonewashing. Did Edwin jeans? So I'm always looking for new pairs of Edwin jeans, despite the fact because I've got 10, right? So, freedom from trauma leads us to numb out somehow. Freedom with trauma is kind of like being okay with not being okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I love that, those 4 words, set up to wonder, right? And wonder, on one level, wonder is about curiosity, and another version of wonder is wow, like what nature does to us. So I go back to the ski trip. I think that's because I haven't been in 6 years, and if I am skiing, you can ski in Vermont, right? You have ski resorts.
Yeah, there's plenty of skiing here. Yeah,
plenty of skiing, yeah. So you can't ski in Yorkshire, but it would probably take me 6 hours drive, and I might be able to ski if there is a little bit of snow in the Scottish Highlands, right? But that awe-inspiring feeling, like, so this often happens if you're on a chairlift. So you're going up on a chairlift, and then you crest a particular a ridge, and suddenly, woof, the whole next valley opens up to you.
Oh, lovely.
And you've got a sense of wonder, right?
Yeah.
So you can wonder as in curious, nagging, all those questions, or you can wonder as in wow, And the other thing that came to my mind with wonder was, have you read the book called Wonder? It's a kid's book about a young guy who's got a really rare disease, facial disfiguration, and he goes to school with a.
I haven't read that book, and I know it was made into a movie, and I haven't seen it. But if you recommend it, I'll add it to my list for future viewing.
Well,
reading.
I can't recommend the movie because I haven't seen the movie, but the book is superb. It's like it's a middle school age book, I think it was written for, but
Okay. Yeah.
it's a fantastic book. So is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we bring this in, Sarah?
No, I love that you are thinking about the difference between freedom with trauma or freedom from trauma. And I think it's really interesting to think about what changes between those two, just with the little preposition change. And I don't believe that trauma is a linear process. I think that it's a non-linear experience, and but I am committed to what I said earlier about resting in that unknowing, which I think is to your point of freedom with trauma, or versus like freedom from trauma. And I am so happy to be in conversation with you, and I hope that your Thriving Adoptees community enjoyed the conversation, and anyone can reach out to me from my website which has my email address. I'm very happy to continue the conversation one-on-one, or and I think that it's really nice to be connected with other adoptees and to form community in whatever way we can. So thank you for having me.
Lovely. So gracious. What came to my mind as you were discussing that, you used the word experience, and I saw a difference between the content of our experience, right? The content of our experience, which includes, for adoptees, trauma, rather than the context of the experience, right? So the context of the experience is what's aware of the trauma. Yeah, it's that if we said, I am traumatized, it's the I am bit before the traumatized bit, or I am feeling insecure. It's the awareness, the truth and the beauty. I think what Keats was pointing at was the awareness, the context for our experience, not our experience.
Yeah, thanks for differentiating that. And I feel like the way that I've been able to think about those things has been through poetry, and each individual poem offers its own different take on my adoptee experience. And I think one of the things that I hope for the book is that there is transformation, and that by creating art and taking our adoptee experience and making art is a healing process.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons why I believe in art and writing and any type of creative practice that helps us process our lives, and also contributes to some type of conversation that you want to have, which is one of the beautiful things about having a book out in the world. So thank you so much for inviting me and for having me.
Beautiful, Sarah. Thank you very much, listeners. I hope you've enjoyed that slightly different take on an episode of Thriving Adoptees. And we'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.